Hello, welcome to Conversations. I'm Mike May, and tonight we have with us Tom Walker, a local guy. Thank you for joining us. Now, where are you from? Where were you born?
Hartford, Connecticut, Hartford Hospital.
Okay, well, me too. But now, where did you grow up?
Well, we lived in Wethersfield. Our family lived in Wethersfield, and we moved to Ellington.
Okay.
I'm not even sure why. To another suburb, well, a little further out, a little more country. But anyway, 1964.
So now, so you were about how old when you moved to Ellington?
I was at fourth grade, and we moved in spring of '64. And then, but we commuted. I commuted the last few weeks rather than, and so finished out fourth grade in Wethersfield, and then
Ellington.
ready to rock in fifth grade.
Okay, and now from where have you worked your whole life? Almost your whole life.
Well, I mean, I haven't strayed too far.
I'm actually going somewhere with this, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, I haven't strayed too far. I'm trying to think of the first job, if any of them have any particular interest. Well, I worked at the Ellington Library, Hall Memorial Library,
Okay.
as a junior in high school, age 16. And then I had a couple little jobs here and there. My first full-time job was out of high school. I didn't go to college. And I worked at Rex Lumber in South Windsor on Sullivan Ave.
All right.
And simple job, unloading freight cars one stick at a time.
And where were you living at?
Grunt work. Well, at that point, I mean, right out of high school, I lived in a couple of different places, local apartments.
In what town?
Vernon.
Oh, you did.
Yep. No, like I said, I didn't stray.
Okay. Now, where do you live now?
Ellington.
Ellington.
In fact, I never actually checked it exactly, but probably 2 miles from where we lived, when I grew up, which was fourth grade through high school.
Okay. Now you said you had a couple other jobs before you.
Yeah, a couple summers while I was in high school, I applied for a job. There was when they used to put ads in the local paper for maybe they still do. I don't pay much attention. But
When there used to be local papers.
right. Well, I think it was the JI. I think it was I think it was called that. But anyhow, there was an ad in the paper for hardworking young college kids, men. It was not. It was just for males. And so it didn't say what it was. So I applied, and it was another one of those grunt work jobs. And I believe it was between maybe between my junior and senior year. Anyway, so there was 4 or 5 of us that got hired, and I was the only one that lasted.
Oh.
And the other guys were college guys.
Oh.
But it was too, I don't know why they left. I don't know if it was the pay. I think it was too hard.
So what were you doing?
We were cleaning big heating systems for like schools and I don't know, I don't think we did any hospitals, but big, maybe car dealerships that had, I guess it was hot water systems. And anyway, it was the summertime, so they'd heat everything up, and we'd go in, cleaning out the ductwork, and depending on whether it was hot air or water or whatever, I don't even hardly remember. All I remember was you got filthy.
I was just going to say, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You wore a suit, you wore a hat, you wore goggles, mask, stuff on your feet.
Real dirty job.
Still looked like you were in a coal mine.
Yeah.
Besides the fact that it was physically hard, it was physically gross, dirty, and hot.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So it was just,
Now,
real work.
Yeah. Now, I think that we all owe you, in a way, a debt of gratitude, because now, what was your longest term job?
Oh, well, I went to work for what ended up being my future father-in-law in 1974. In fact, I left the Rex Lumber on a Friday and started working for my future father-in-law on the following Monday. So I've been, I worked and for septic service. Skip septic service. So it was a local station. I'm assuming maybe some of the people watching would have heard of us.
Yeah. Well, again, that's an extremely necessary.
Yeah.
Now,
that's one of the best things about it.
Well, yeah, it's kind of
provided a service that people needed.
Yeah,
you know.
that's
A lot of people needed.
it's kind of hard to outsource that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know. Right. That's a
Okay,
good
so
point,
what did you do?
yeah. Well,
So what's the job? You
I-
wake up in the morning and
yeah. I started out. They had a guy pumping tanks. There was only 4 of us, I think, when I started. Again, Pete Skipper was the owner. He had a son also named Peter, who was actually at the time running the company, and the old man was just working there. It was kind of a unique dynamic because he owned the company, but he wasn't the boss per se.
so he was doing the physical, he was going
Yeah.
on. Okay.
Yeah. So when I started, we had one guy who was running did you ever hear the phrase the honey wagon?
Yeah,
well, that's,
okay.
You know, pumping out tanks. And then I was on a crew installing systems. We did other things, some other excavating type work besides just putting in septic systems. We did sewer work and drainage work, but primarily, so you had excavating equipment and operating a dump truck, and definitely operating what they call the pine handle, the shovel.
Oh, yeah.
P&H was a company that made excavators, built excavators. But the P&H I ran was a pine-handled shovel. Wasn't it? We didn't have an excavator per se. We had what they call a backhoe loader.
Okay,
So
yeah.
Front bucket, and then on the back was your digging apparatus.
Well, again, so you did drainage work and excavating and
Yeah, well,
Sewer.
septic system, right. Sewer work is in the ground. Septic systems are in the ground. In fact, what's called subsurface sewage disposal. It's a way to get rid of the
effluent.
yeah, the effluent is the word, right? In the ground. So there was, at that point, I just did what I was told. But somebody's got to design the systems. So that happened later on. But,
So again, it's things like this that we take, so sometimes we take for granted,
oh, sure.
and people just, live their lives, but it's
Right.
people who, what did you call it, the pine handle?
The pine handle, that's what I just called it because it was just kind of kidding around because of P&H, as I said, they made,
I see.
made
All right.
big.
Okay, the pun.
So right, I mean, sometimes you had equipment and sometimes you just,
Yeah. Right.
the old-fashioned way, like the Egyptians and the
Oh, great.
the guys that built the pyramid. I don't think they had hydraulics or anything mechanical.
They had aliens.
Right.
Took care.
Yeah, right. Right.
Okay, we'll continue that. Okay, we're going to have to take a short break now, and we'll be back in just a minute. Thank you. Okay, thank you for coming back. We're here with Tom Walker, who's telling us about his very necessary work he's done all his life in the area, and we all owe him and the crew a debt of gratitude that we can live healthy and drink clean water and our houses don't fall down. Now, if you didn't do, okay, you did this kind of work your whole life. If you didn't do this, like what other work? So I wish I could have,
Yeah.
it would have been nice to do,
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'll make a comment here. So I've heard people talk about, the hopes and dreams and for the future and making plans. And of course, if you go to college, you got to pick a major and figure stuff out and try to get a job in whatever you major in. Anyhow, I think my hope and my dream was to make it through the day.
Oh,
I can't really recall. I don't feel like I even had the ability to project too far out into the future. I mean, I was into music my father played the piano reasonably well. It was a hobby, but he was into it. But I never took piano lessons. I never took any kind of lesson. But I was into rock and roll, like a lot of us were. You know, I had those moments sitting around on a Sunday evening watching the Ed Sullivan Show and the British invasion and all of that. So I
just dated ourselves with the Ed Sullivan Show, but oh, there I am. Okay, you go.
So yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have been a drummer in a rock and roll band.
Drummer,
Yeah,
really?
I would have picked a drummer.
Really? Did you ever play drums?
I horsed around. I played the drums like people play the air guitar.
Oh.
And of course, you know, we did the clubbing, and so you're dancing, and you got to have a little rhythm to get out on the dance floor.
Did you ever perform with a band, or?
No.
Oh no, but
No, it was. I don't, do you call that a pipe dream? I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
But it was, you know,
something you would have liked.
yeah. I don't think I had the confidence to pursue it. Maybe that was part of the problem. So my father was white collar. I think I've mentioned it to you.
Oh, that's right.
before.
He was.
He was a law librarian.
And right in downtown Hartford.
Right. State Library is right across from the Capitol.
Yeah.
So he did that, and my mother had, she's got a whole story, which, you know, she was born in 1925 in Nashua, New Hampshire. And anyway, she went to college for a couple of years in Berea in Kentucky.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And, but she was trying to do it on her own and couldn't afford it, and ended up coming back to New England and got a job.
No.
But she never got a degree. But, you know, they both were readers. So, but I don't think I spent any time thinking about being a white collar guy. It's just I like being outside.
Yeah, I was just going to say some people, because I used to teach high school, and there was a guy who was one of the custodians, and even when he was standing still, he was moving because he was always. So to say maybe to him, you know, here, sit at this desk for 8 hours, I think he would have exploded. So. And
yeah, I mean, right. We're all cut out for different things. I just, but I have a tendency not to quit something that I start without a really, really good reason. You know, maybe some people quit because of the money, and maybe it's just not something that but I don't know. I just always have felt if I'm going to do something different, I have to have a really, really good reason. And so.
Now did you leave the company or?
Nope. So I ended up, my future wife, because I mentioned that the owner was my future father-in-law. Well, when I started, she was still in high school, and she worked after school in the office.
Oh, okay.
So that's essentially how I met her, and of course, as they say, the rest is history. But we ended up
married the boss's daughter.
Yeah, we had 5 of them.
5 daughters?
5 daughters. Yeah.
Oh, good grief.
Two sons and 5 daughters. A good Catholic family.
Oh, so there was 7 kids.
7 kids.
Oh my goodness. Oh, good grief. Oh.
Yeah. And what was the question again?
I get the. Let's see. You.
Oh, how?
So what are you doing? Yeah, you worked for them for.
I started in '74, and then myself and another son-in-law bought my father-in-law out. We made an arrangement to purchase the business from him in 1978.
Oh, so you bought Skipper's.
So we bought it, in 1978. And neither one of us knew. Well, we definitely did not know anything about business. You know, we could do the jobs that we did. So that was an interesting thing. But so anyway, we were partners until 2004, and I approached him to see if he was interested in selling to me. It was an S corp, which basically we were stockholders, but essentially a partnership.
Yeah.
And so in 2005, we signed the paperwork, and I bought him out.
Oh.
And then I might as well fast forward a little bit. So that was 2005, and then in 2014, I sold the business to a nephew, all in the family.
I was just going to say.
It's typical with these small businesses,
Yeah.
you know. So 2014, I sold the business to my nephew, and then I worked for him for 4 years, and 2017 was my last year.
So that was 39 years.
Well, it's more than that, right? It's 26, 43 years.
43
So
years.
it's 26,
Oh, from like,
74 to 2000.
oh, for 74. I was thinking of
Yeah.
78 when
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, well, right.
Yeah.
As far as ownership, correct.
Oh, but you worked for them for 43 years.
43 years.
My goodness, you slacker! Why can't you?
Yeah.
You should have stuck it out.
Well, you know, back
No,
in the day, that
I'm
was
being
more
obnoxious.
common. No,
Yeah,
I know
I
you
know,
are.
right,
But I'm
yeah,
saying
right.
back in the day, that
No,
was
yeah.
not that unusual, but
yeah.
now people don't do anything for 43 years
Yeah.
now, especially stay married.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's too bad. No, but that was so for all these decades. Because again, I've lived in the area. I've seen the skippers' trucks go
Right,
by, and I drive extra careful because I thought
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
want to have an
right,
accident
right.
with that. Because I go, they're doing an unnecessary job. So you were the owner for all that time. Okay. All
Very
right.
well.
Okay.
I didn't like the color, but the color worked.
Well.
That light green with the yellow lettering,
Yeah.
it stands out.
Right,
You know, that's
right.
the whole idea of putting your name on the truck. Is
Right,
You want
yeah.
to stand out.
Yeah.
In fact, my brother-in-law liked the color, and I didn't. But I think he liked it for the right reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was noticeable.
Something
And,
that.
Right. True. Yeah.
Something that said. Now, did that business change over the decades?
Oh, it changed a lot. Yeah, it changed a lot. It changed, well, equipment and tools have changed. Well, it's a regulated business. It's
Okay.
regulated from the safety standpoint. It's regulated from the actual work that you do. When I first started, it was a little more, not fly by night, but a lot of contractors did what they wanted to do. You know, and
That's not something you want to mess around with.
no, I mean, there's standards, there's technical standards, again, put out by the state of what you have to do and how you have to do it, and materials that you use, whether it's pipe or sand or stone. I mean, it just, like everything, it evolved. And so it still was hard work, but it definitely changed in terms of the technology. And in some ways it became easier on the physical side of things, but it was still work. Still had to have a shovel. Every truck had to have
Yeah.
a shovel.
Oh, okay. Still doing that. I heard about one guy. He was living in like the Midwest, and people were having a terrible problem with prairie dogs because they dig holes, undermine things. The machines would fall in, people would get hurt, and they said, and they tried like gassing them, and well, then that goes in the soil and this and that. And then this one guy, and this is what I read, he was vacuuming, and he thought, he had like what if you got a big vacuum tube and
Suck
put it
the
in
prairie
and
dogs
suck the
out,
prairie. And at this end, if you had like a big fan, shall we say, so when the prairie dog came in, when it got to the truck, there wouldn't be any more prairie dog.
Right.
And it was quick, and they didn't put any chemicals or anything in the soil, so he came up with that.
Well, yeah, those critters can do, if you saw, I don't know how many of the audience have seen, what's the movie with Bill Murray, Caddyshack.
Oh,
And
okay.
they had a problem with gophers
Okay.
in a golf course.
So maybe that inspired him. Okay, now in this, did you ever have, is there like an incident or a day that stands out? Oh, one time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that day.
Well, I would say we had quite a few. I'm trying to think of one that might stand out. Sometimes, well, today, and I'm talking about today, is, what is it, 40 degrees? Barely cold, warm enough so it wasn't snowing. Cold rain is kind of a pain to have to work in
Oh, yeah,
conditions.
if you're outside, yeah.
You're slopping around in the mud and so forth. So, so I could probably think of some stories of working under conditions. we worked in the ground. I mean, we worked under unsafe conditions, and I tried to be safe, but I know I did some things that technically probably were not. Well, let's put it this way: if OSHA, you're familiar with OSHA,
yeah.
if OSHA had driven by,
Uh-oh.
they might shut the job down. Nothing radical, but radical. Well, I shouldn't say that. Radical enough that if a ditch caves in and you're down 10 feet,
Oh, yeah.
you might as well just keep putting
Yeah.
the dirt in
Right.
and
Oh,
put
great.
a little,
But nothing ever blew up on you, or none of the trucks ever. Well, I'd be glad.
Yeah, we might have to save. I'd have to maybe think back and save it for another time.
Oh.
Think of the story, but no, there were stories. I mean, Christmas parties and stuff where you get together, and we probably invariably end up talking about a particular job, and when you're in the midst of it, it might not be that funny, but when it's all said and done and it's over with, and you've moved on, then you can laugh
catch your
about
breath.
it. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll continue. Okay, we're going to take another break, and we'll be back with Tom Walker. Okay, welcome back. We're talking with Tom Walker, who's told us about his 43 years in the Ellington community and helping take care of us all this time. Now, you had something happen in your life earlier. Well, tell us about that, because you've been working
Right.
your whole life.
I'll try to make this short and sweet. So I'm 68, and I only say that for perspective and context for somebody who may be watching. You've heard the phrase "sex, drugs, and rock and roll." I mean, there was a lot going on at that time, and so I was full speed ahead with all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was fortunate enough to recognize, I think I was 18 or 19, that I was going backwards, going in reverse, probably about 100 miles an hour in reverse. And anyway, and I knew, it was not a good scene, and the end result was not going to be very good. Mm-hmm. So I decided one of the things I was able to muster up the self-discipline and say, I got to stop smoking pot. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things. And I had a friend of mine that just, not because we were chatting with one another, but just he was kind of in a similar situation, and he decided that he needed to do the same thing. He was even younger than I was, only 16 years old, but he was on the highway to hell too. And so one Friday night, and during the winter, the basketball, there's nothing to Ellington, it's not really a cow town anymore. It's more a bedroom town. But anyway, you're always looking for stuff to do at night, especially on a weekend night, So on Friday night, we're looking for something to do, and we decided, we'd get on the phone, we're talking, we decided to go to the local basketball game, high school basketball. Ellington always had really, really good athletics. So basketball, high school basketball sold out, standing room only. So we went to the game, and we didn't smoke pot before we went. And so I don't know what time the game ends, 9 o'clock, something like that, 9:30. And then, too early to go home. So we're driving around, and my buddy, we didn't know what to do. Where do you go to meet girls if you can't? You know what I mean? If you could pick.
There's no hot spot in Ellington when you're.
So we're driving around the back roads in Ellington, and he says, "Let's stop and see Mr. Skipper." Now, I knew the family because he had a lot of kids that went to, but I didn't know him personally. And so it must have been 10:30 at night, and I said, why are we doing this? And plus there was that thing called the generation gap at the time. I didn't hang with people that were,
Yeah.
that could be my parents. But anyway, I agreed to go. We knocked on the door, and Pete Skipper and his wife, her name was Dolores, they were awake, sitting in the kitchen, I guess just hanging in the kitchen around a kitchen table, shooting a breeze or something. And they invited us in. And, my buddy, I got to give just a quick backstory. He had gotten stuck with his van a week or two prior to that, and spent the night in his van.
Oh, dear.
And drove down the road, or walked down the road on Saturday morning, knocked on Skipper's door because he saw that he had tractors there, and he pulled them out.
Oh.
So he had met Mr.
Yeah.
Skipper. So that was, and he liked him. He thought he was a cool guy. So anyway, we went in, they invited us in, we ended up shooting the breeze for at least a couple hours. And we're still good?
Yeah.
Yeah. we just sat around the kitchen table talking, and I don't even remember exactly what we were talking about, but it was interesting enough to keep us there for a couple hours. And his wife, I don't know, she said, do you want to pray? And so I remember standing up in a circle. I don't know if we held hands or anything, but we stood up, and she looked me in the eye, and she said, do you know Jesus loves you? And, I was brought up nominally Catholic. I knew who Jesus was, but not really, And anyway, that question was the beginning of a whole new way of life. It was the beginning of, and I think they must have invited us to church. They went to a church in, I think it was in Farmington, called Church of the Living God. And they were ex-Catholics. Mrs. Skipper, she was, her last name was DeCarli, so she was second generation from Italy. And Pete Skipper was second generation from Lithuania, and both Catholic, primarily Catholic countries. And but they were not involved with the Catholic Church anymore, and not dissing the Catholic Church, but they got involved in this church, a non-denominational church in Farmington. So anyway, but that was really kind of the beginning of me starting to think about things. And it was before I started working there, so this is probably 1973. So that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I could riff about, and it's been a process ever since. But it was baptized, full immersion, baptized. We got married in 1977, and to a good Christian woman. She turned 19 in May, and we got married in July. So that was a little, but back then, it wasn't as unusual as it is now to get married at that young age.
So after 68 years, things are still hanging in there for you and everything.
Yeah, I mean, we've been married for 45 years. We have a 42-year-old son and a 36-year-old daughter. And
well, this has been, we're starting to have to wrap it up, but this has been interesting. Thank you for coming by and telling us about yourself and helping us out in our community. And I want to thank you for joining us. This is Mike May, and we hope to see you again. Thank you.
So, I mean, it's all right talking. Now we're off the